Hey, welcome everybody. Today is April, oh, get out of the way there, April 8th, is it? I believe April 8th is Wednesday morning. I know it's Wednesday because this is the definition of getting old. I have a pillbox and I check my pillbox to see what day it was today. Um, this is Brent Bushy with School Zoned, and today we have a special guest. We have Marilyn Doerfel. For folks that are familiar with the Resource Center, you might know that name because Jordan Doerfel is our office manager and is Marilyn's daughter. So thank you for joining us, Marilyn.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, Brent.
So we were talking as a team about how do we find folks that have experience in this world of distance learning, and how do we try and find lessons learned for educators about how do we do this? How do we do this successfully? How do we do it sustainably? How do we ensure that kids are learning? And we were brainstorming different folks, and Jordan said, I bet you my mom could do it. So I said, okay, explain. So Marilyn, tell us what you do, and tell us your role, and then got a whole bunch of questions related to your experience.
Perfect. What brings Jordan into this is that I did homeschool 5 of my 7 children. Little by little, gradually that expanded until with Jordan and her next older brother, I homeschooled them all the way through the 12th grade. This was in conjunction with another school that had a satellite program. So we were able to take some classes with them. But I did have that home experience myself. And then after Jordan graduated high school, I began working with a blended model school here in Maryland, where we teach 2 days a week. We actually have a faculty, and then we send home assignments for the parents to do 3 days a week. So it is partially homeschooled and partially tutor-led.
Okay.
So I've kind of had experience both from being able to plan the whole ball of wax myself, and then also now I'm kind of working with the tutors and actually doing some classroom instruction myself.
Yeah, cool. So the homeschool experience, I think, can inform a lot of what's going on today in the distance learning world. We know this isn't. I've seen some people say, "Oh, now I have some of my friends that are just parents say, oh, now I'm a homeschooler," and I've seen other people object to, well, not really. Like, homeschooling doesn't mean that we stay at home all the time, right? But
Exactly.
But and right now, unfortunately, we all do. I don't know about you, but I'm staying home all the time, so going a little stir crazy. But I think there is a lot that can be learned, and we're in, as explained before we started off, we're in that first week of official distance learning in the state. So teachers are leaning in. I know my kids have been interacting with their teachers in different fashions, and plans are already changing a little bit, right? The best laid plans. So I think it'd be helpful to talk through your experience of sort of what's worked for you, what hasn't, and so if you're ready, we can jump right in here. What advice would you provide to I think teachers would start with? So you're in your first week, and what's the best way to the teachers should be thinking about distance learning?
Well, first of all, it's a big change. And so I think the first thing is to give yourself grace. I mean, we are all running 100 miles an hour right behind the bus. And things are going to change. It may take a little while for us the learning curve will take a little bit. Okay, I'm in a blank. Sorry.
Sure. I mean, I think the grace is important, right? And I think especially with experienced educators, they're used to being good at their job, right? I made a career shift 6 years ago into this role, and I remember I had left a pretty successful career in the federal government, and I remember calling back and talking to members of my old team. They said, "How's it going?" I said, "Well, I really enjoy it, but I'm not any good at it." They said, "I don't think that's fair." And I said, "No, like, the analogy I used was I remembered when I was learning how to drive, and it would start to rain, and I'd be driving on the highway, and there'd be a lot of traffic, and I knew I had to turn on the windshield wipers, but I wasn't sure I could do it. right? I had to think about, now you just reach over, flip on the windshield wipers. And that's how I felt like in my job was whenever something new came up, I had to stop and think. And there's only so much computing. I'm not working with the biggest computer up here. And the computing power that I had was dedicated to just sort of the rote tasks that, so that kind of prevented me from getting to where I really wanted to be in terms of thinking. And I think that's where education may be right.
Yeah, I think teachers, what makes teachers love their job is being with the kids.
That's true.
I mean, you get in there with a classroom of kids and it just gives you energy. And now you're having to do all the work, all the planning, and maybe having to use platforms that you're unfamiliar with. And like you said, the learning curve on those, without even the feedback of being able to look into their faces and see them responding. Except, of course, we have platforms like Zoom, which are being very helpful. They're not too hard to learn and to buy into. It's a little bit harder when you start trying to do video lessons and trying to make standalone videos that the kids can just watch at their when they have time.
Mm-hmm. What about balancing? So that you're coming with that brings up, like, how much instruction do you think teachers should be trained to provide direct, like through video or things like that, versus leading students to content like either YouTube or other, just curriculum providers? How do you strike the balance?
I think this varies a great deal with the subject itself and the level at which it's being taught. When you get into higher level courses, a lot of times you need interaction between teacher and student, at least part of the time. I'm thinking high school level. You can give some lecture material, but then you kind of have to go back and discuss it and see how they're receiving it. The same thing at the very young levels when you're teaching reading and phonics. It's very difficult to do, although there are a lot of good videos out there that can put across concepts, but in order to check to see if they're learning them well, then you need to jump in and maybe do a mixture of giving some video material and giving some Zoom type material. Personally, with our school, we are encouraging teachers to do as much as they can without Zoom, just because it can become an overload on the family. If they've got 2 or 3 or 4 kids all trying to use some kind of electronic device at the same time, it can become, I've had some parents really say, I just can hardly manage my household. The schedule is getting to be ridiculous.
So you recommend
that said, a lot of the classes like to get together just because they like to see each other. Yeah. And it's important not to forget that too.
Yeah, I can tell you, when I saw my daughter, she posted on Facebook, my wife walked by, my daughter had taken her Chromebook up into her room for her first Zoom meeting with her class. It had been 2.5 weeks, and there was this light bulb on her that just was like, oh, there's my daughter. I remember her. So yeah, it's a pretty great picture. So yeah, I think it's students and teachers feel that way of just of wanting to be around. I feel that way. I want to be around humans. I'm going to be the creepy guy hugging people at the office when I get a chance. Just like, I'm so happy to see you right now.
Frozen.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do we talk to parents about this, right? Like, how do we talk to parents and make sure they understand what's going on and how to process this information correctly, right? And I'm worried about kind of the 2 poles, the drill sergeant parent, or the I can't do this, I'm done parent, right? How do we
Right. And you're talking from a parent point of view now. I'm sorry, you kind of froze up for a while and I missed some of your
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So how do we talk to parents about this and help them balance, right? In this just totally normal time that we're living through right now.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the thing that comes up, I mean, everyone that I've ever talked to that's homeschooled has communicated a kind of a self-revelation that has not always been flattering. You're spending a lot more time with your kids, and you're in a kind of an undefined relationship. You want them to do the work, but you're not exactly sure what it's supposed to look like. And they would rather be, playing on their laptop or, whatever else with their Legos. And it's sometimes it's a clash of wills that you got to figure out how to walk through. And sometimes you need a cooling down time for yourself, but you also need to understand that your kids are under pressure and they're going to need some extra help, maybe extra structure, maybe extra grace. I really recommend, if it's at all possible, that that a parent would search out a mentor type person to use as a lifeline, so that, because it's not going to go smoothly. Like, you're not going to be tiptoeing through the rainbows with little stars bursting around you every single moment that you're trying to homeschool your kids. And you also need to give yourself some time when you're not being the teacher. You just go back to being mom and dad. We're just having fun. We're doing as best as we can with this new life that's been thrust upon us. So it's really good to establish some time that this is school time. We're going to work for this time, but it's not going to be nearly the amount of time that they would spend in the classroom.
Is that typical all the time, you think? Like in a I'm going to call it a homeschool environment. Is that typical, where you spend less time like on academic tasks?
Well, yes and no, because you mixed two questions there.
Sure, yeah, no, I know.
I think there's less time spent because there's a lot of time in the school setting where you're not actually focused on the academic tasks.
There's a lot of ways.
A lot of stuff going on. When one of my daughters first went to school, she commented on how long it takes to stand in line to get a drink at the water fountain. At home you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And you can move right from one subject into another. If you get done, you don't have to wait for the rest of the class to finish. And just typically it's more focused. And that's why I say you do need to actually take a break, because you can just be the drill sergeant and just, drive yourself and your kids crazy. But on the other hand, you need some.
Are you telling me I've got to put my bullwhip away?
I think it's time.
Yeah, no, I think, and then we've got the added funness of, a lot of parents, myself included, are trying to work and also trying, I'm lying if I say I'm trying to be the educator. My wife has stepped up and she can balance the world a lot better than I can. But she's still got work stuff that she's worried about, and being the teacher educator. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that though. The efficiency of time means that you don't have to be on task as long, and you can still accomplish a lot. Because like I've said to my wife a couple times, wow, the days seem longer. Well, I realize I'm not commuting, right? I'm not, I'm not having to spend the time sort of catching up with people. I'd miss some of that, right? I like that social aspect, but it did take time. So, and there's only so much catching up with my wife that I need to do. Like, hey, did you do the dishes? Cool. All right, what else is going on? So yeah. No, that is a helpful insight on the efficiency of time, and because what I've been worried about when I hear is, well, you're not going to spend as much time on task, is, so we're lowering expectations for kids. That's what my worry has been. But yeah, I think that seems to help it.
Well, I think in this COVID situation, we definitely need to lower our expectations some, and I think most of our school districts have done that. Yeah. Just out of practicality and the nature of the situation we're in.
Yep. Yeah. So then let's take that though. So we've got here, explained before we got on, in Oklahoma, we're going to be going through about May 8th. Some schools may extend beyond that, but all schools will be going through May 8th. And then we're going into the oddest summer of my life. I have no idea what it's going to be like. The fall, schools here in Oklahoma start mid-August, generally speaking. And we don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know if we can return 100% traditional, if we're going to have to remain 100% distance learning, or if there's going to be a mixture where, some kids can go back because maybe they've had COVID or their families aren't concerned, or others, they haven't or they are concerned about getting it. So what can we glean? Like, what should we be thinking about as we're going through this kind of trial phase, as we're dating with distance learning? What do you think about it regardless of whether we're back in traditional brick and mortar or not? What are the things you think should be at top of mind?
Well, I think we're learning about distance learning. We're being forced to, and we're being forced to weigh the advantages. And I think the good thing to glean is to take the best of both worlds if we could possibly do it. Let's sustain the things that worked well to do at a distance, whether it's recording video lessons, whether it's spending some time at home watching videos and then getting together to discuss. This can definitely be to our advantage and can enrich our offering in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Do you use a learning management system when you work with students?
No, we don't. Right now we're just working with Zoom, maybe a little bit of Google Schoolhouse. We're looking into Schoolology. We may move in that direction. I'm actually hoping not. We are a classical model school, so we do a lot of dialectic teaching, which necessitates a back and forth between teacher and student.
Okay. So you want to, is it very, so you worried that an LMS would decrease that student-teacher interaction?
Yeah, I'd have to look into that a little more. I mean, and like I said, it varies so much by subject and by grade level. We could maybe blend that in. It would take a lot of adjustment to move that direction for us.
Yeah, well, I think for most people. So yeah, I'm trying to weigh in my mind, the positive. I mean, I think the attractiveness to me, and I'm an IT guy, right? Like if I see a technical solution, I'm generally more open to that, just personally. But the attractiveness of an LMS to me is you can more easily personalize instruction for each kid, and make sure that they've got content that's leveled for them, and enable them to sort of explore. But you're right. Like if you're doing that, the teacher's job is, I actually think, more critical, but it's fundamentally changed, right? It's not the director's facilitator now. So yeah, it would be a pretty significant shift in paradigm. Talk about, I think the one thing we didn't touch on is, in schools, our teachers have pretty good, in the traditional schools, the teachers have pretty good lesson plans.
Right.
I taught for 2 years, so yeah, I'm an expert. I know, but I can assure you, for me, my lesson plans were, they were best guesses. Right, I worked really hard at them, but it wasn't uncommon for me to find myself off my lesson plan 10 minutes in, because it weren't working and I wasn't going down with the ship.
And you're a people person. You like to talk. You like to ad lib anyway.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, cool. I don't have to deal with this structure. This is terrible. Let's move on. So I did okay with it. I don't know that I was the best teacher. I had fun with it though.
Then you were the best teacher if you had fun, because then the kids had fun.
Well, yeah. This time has allowed me to reconnect with a lot of my old students. Yeah, I don't know about you, but a lot of all different walks of my life, I've been able to reconnect with people. So that's been a positive of this quarantine shutdown. The one thing is, how do you help teachers deal with like failure, right? Like they're going to have lessons right now that just bomb. It's already happened with my kids. I'm not mad about it. I kind of expected it. But how do you help teachers, especially teachers that are experienced, because they're not used to that,
Yeah. Well, it's tough. It's a tough experience to go through. And I personally have had to talk a couple of teachers down off the ledge in the last couple of weeks. And we didn't even go to the LMS, just trying to figure out how to get the videos to work, or trying a new learning platform online. We've tried Khan Academy for a couple of classes, and it's worked for some and not for others. And then, there's always communication with the parents that you have to think about that. But I don't know. Again, if your administrator hopefully will help you with that, you should have a good personal relationship as well as just an official relationship. And again, please connect with other teachers that are going through the same thing. Do this as you can't always do it as a team effort, but like you said, it really hurts when you're good at something and suddenly you feel like a toddler again. So there's no one answer, but we're all in this together, and we're all working for the same goals, and we're trying to move in the same direction, with the goal of providing for our students the best that we can. And I think it's way better than just shutting the doors and saying, stay in your house and play with whatever you find there.
Minecraft.
Right.
No, that's another good point. When I was in my first year teaching, I lived with 4 other teachers, and it was the only thing I could afford to do. But that was so helpful because we were all terrible, right? We were all struggling together. And if I had gone home at night knowing that I'd bombed that day, and I have someone else to say, "Oh, you didn't do that bad. Listen to my story," or that's okay, get up, and having that camaraderie to kind of push each other on. My first year would have been a bear. It was still the hardest job I ever had, but it would have been. I'm not sure I would have made it without that support network. So it's good feedback. What am I not asking? What should I be talking about?
Well, we haven't talked to the students yet.
No, they're those pesky little things, huh?
Yeah. You were really asking a lot of our students because they didn't ask for this either. Mm-hmm. And they miss their friends, they miss their schedule, their routine. They're cooped up inside, a lot of them, for a lot of the time. And we need to understand them. We also need to encourage them to understand themselves and make sure that they know that, this is for a time. It is unpredictable. We're all in the same boat, but if they will take what charge they can of their own learning, if they can keep track of their assignments, if they can understand that their parents are not going to be, substitute teachers. I would say one of the best things to tell students is do your work first. It won't take as long as it used to take, and then you'll have time to do what you want. Instead of fighting your parents and saying, I don't want to do this, or putting it off, or trying to get away without doing it because you're eventually going to have to do it. Yeah, this is what homeschoolers do. This is what we face. And it's wonderful to have that extra time with your parents. It's wonderful for us to have the extra time with our kids. We need to learn this new way of relating, though, because it's a whole different situation. And just like you mentioned, there's this sense of not knowing what's coming next. And that can be a real tension creator right within us psychologically. And we need to help each other, parents and kids and families and churches and other teachers. I mean, as much support as we can get, even though we're staying home. Reach out. And
acknowledging that uncertainty, I think, does help. Okay, I know it's weird.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of talking about that, and I had the same, what you mentioned. I had that experience with one of my daughters. I came out to get a cup of coffee the other day, and she was chatting with her friends. Okay, and I came out about an hour later, and I asked her, "Hey, how was math?" Because I knew she had some math work to get done. She said, "Well, I haven't done it yet." And I said, "You were just chatting with your friends online." And she said, well, yeah, but no one told me that I had to do math. And I said, oh, okay, well, let's talk about this. Well, here's the rules. You have work.
Just setting things up. Yeah.
Yeah, you have work to do. You can ask for help if you need help with it. But like, we don't get online and mess around with our friends until our work's done. That's just how the world works, you know? And she was like, oh, you're in charge. Like, you can do this. Like, she's 9 years old, but she can manage her schedule, right? Like if we set that expectation for her. So it wasn't, she got real emotional. We've had a lot of that, a lot of up and downs. And I said, look, I'm not mad. Like, I understand, but like we've got to, we're going to be doing this for a while, and we've got to understand all of us have a role to play in this family.
Yeah. So. And you're probably going to have to say it more than once or twice. That's another thing. Parents can get real discouraged with having to repeat themselves. And you learn that, in the classroom too. Just because you said it once doesn't mean that it's going to be that way forever after. But it's part of the way we're made as people. It's part of who we are. We just have to, just take it in stride, Yeah, yes, I will remind you again, but it will go easier for you if you just, kick in yourself.
The beatings will continue until morale improves. That's what.
Stop talking about that way.
I like being irreverent. Yeah. That's one of my favorite lines. That's my management philosophy in the office too. So, but no,
well, I have to pray for Jordan a little more.
Yeah, please do. Mostly manage my inbox, which God help anyone that has to help with my. I'll come in and I'll ask her 4 questions. She's like, it's all on your calendar. If you just look at your calendar. So,
she's good at that.
Oh, that is helpful. But then I wouldn't be talking with you. So, yeah. Oh gosh. Well, I think that's helpful. We've got to realize all of our roles have changed. The teacher educator role has changed. The parent, our just traditional worker role, and the role of kid has changed today with this whole pandemic. And I think the balance we're trying to figure out like what is normal, what are the expectations we should have, and how do we offer grace without giving up? Like, I want to get back to normal, right? Like, I want to know what good is again, so that I can say, okay, that's the bar we're going for. And then I also realize, I don't want people to be stressed out and anxious all the time. Right. That's the balance I'm really struggling with on a day-to-day basis, and I think everyone is. So.
Well, there was one of my mentors earlier on when I was homeschooling used to always say, do whatever you can and it'll be good. In other words, don't give up, keep trying, but don't beat yourself because you're doing more than if you just gave up. So I think we all, we want to hold ourselves to a high standard, which is good. But we're not in normal times. We're just not, and we're trying to make things work. And what we're doing out of concern and out of love for our kids, whether we're doing it as a teacher for the students or as a parent for the students. We're showing them love in a situation, and we're teaching them really, they're seeing, they're observing, how are we handling this weird situation, this weird COVID situation. They're probably going to learn more from that than any academic thing you teach them this whole time. Just live your life in front of them, and teach them how to live life, and that's really what schooling is all about.
Yeah. I foresee a day when one of my daughters is in therapy, and why do you always eat peanut butter when you're under stress?
That's not one of the worst coping mechanisms.
That's true. Though it was a little embarrassing when I had to order the second order of Sam's in the quarantine. It was like, whoa, we might need to put the peanut butter up on a higher shelf. Yeah, that's good times. All right. Well, is there anything else before we close up shop? I found this really helpful. Personally, I hope folks. I think it really helped provide context to the situation we're in.
Good. I really enjoyed talking with you. It was a good time.
Definitely. Thanks, Marilyn. You have a great day.
You too.